Today we have with us another young Indian as part of the Voice of the Young series. Hello, everybody. Good to be with you. Today we have with us Shaurya Bansal. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Shaurya.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, sir, for taking the time and giving me the opportunity to uh, present my story as well. I'll start at the beginning. I was primarily motivated towards economics, which has long been taught to me as a subject about making choice in a kind of an ironical beginning, because I took economics because I didn't want to make a tough choice. I really didn't want to close my door on any of the social sciences. I loved reading about psychology. I loved reading about history. I loved maths. Uh, I also loved what we were taught as microeconomics and macroeconomics at that time. And so really it was difficult for me to close my future to any one of those subjects. So I thought, why not give myself a few more years and really see what the social sciences have to offer. And that's how I took economics. I wrote my boards in the year of 2020, and unfortunately that was the year where schools and the entire country, and in fact the entire world, was shut down due to the pandemic. So the results owing to that were delayed by quite a bit. In the interim, I was sitting at home, and I saw that Ashoka University had also opened up their admissions process. Although I had wanted to get into St. Stephen's, like Subodh sir, that was my aim to try and get into St. Stephen's if I can. So that really was the true priority. But I thought in uncertain times, one really does not know what the nature of the checking will be, what the nature of the results will be. So it would be best for me to take admission where I get. So I had enrolled at Ashoka University in the interim, and we are supposed to take foundational courses there as part of the compulsory liberal arts education that they offer. And it was my very good fortune, and perhaps a life-changing thing that happened to me there is that I met Pulapre Balakrishnan, and
At whom?
he is Pulapre Balakrishnan.
Okay.
So he was my professor for the history of economic thought, and Sir has been as exemplary as one can, uh, get in India. He's as distinguished an economist as one can hope for, and he was really patient with us. He taught us the basics. He took us through the entire history from Adam Smith to Ricardo to Malthus to Marx and everybody else, and we basically came to Amartya Sen, and that really piqued my interest towards economics, because at the high school level we have been taught economics in a fairly mathematical, model-based, diagrammatic procedure, and that was at odds with the political economy and philosophical subject that I was introduced to at Ashoka. And so I really was concerned with what early economists called the question of the good life. Is that what are we? Yes, there are trade-offs in life, and one quote by Thomas Sowell is there are no solutions, only trade-offs, and that kind of resonates. But what are the trade-offs that are even worth making? And who should really be making those decisions for society as a whole, right? So how do you move towards your present status of uh, distraught and famine and hunger and all of that towards a more enlightened age? And that's when I took a course on justice that was taught by Michael Sandel at Harvard. So that was a distance learning course that I took online. And as I read more and more, the tenets of libertarianism really appealed to me.
Okay.
It seemed to me that let a thousand suns bloom, and perhaps because of my background, my father's in the Indian Navy, my mother's a scientist with the DRDO, and there was all the upbringing that I have was as much freedom as possible within certain limits, right? So there were expectations that were set, that this is what we expect you to do. We don't expect you to get into vices. We don't expect you to fall by the wayside. We expect you to be academically good. We expect you to pursue extracurricular activities, but other than that, you're free to, do what you want.
Yeah.
So that framework kind of resonated with me, and I saw that through the libertarian viewpoint as well. And luckily for me, these things tended to happen coincidentally, that it was also consistent with the neoclassical economic models that we were being taught, right? Is
Okay.
that but from a slightly different angle. Of course, they were not arguing from a morality basis, which libertarians are. They are arguing from an efficiency basis.
Yes.
So there were two sides to the same coin, so
Yeah.
to say. And then that's when my and again, funnily enough, one of the first classes I took in microeconomics was also Mankiw's uh, Mankiw's parable of the rent control, as in
Yeah.
how the unintended consequences might come about to harm the people that the rent control is actually supposed to favor.
Right.
And to me, that was mind blowing. That really said that maybe public policy is not as straightforward as it seems to an 18-year-old boy, right? Because when I was living as a tenant in one of the buildings, to me it always used to be, why can't they just impose rent control? If I'm paying 30,000 as the rent, I don't want to worry about the fact that the rent might increase tomorrow because the landlord is greedy.
Yeah.
So thankfully we seem to be going into a process where public policy is much more complex than what an 18-year-old or 17-year-old would like to happen. But in any case, that got me started on economics. So I wanted to read more. Of course, to read a lot of economics today, you require a lot of background that undergraduates in the first or second year may not have. So a lot of theory papers involve analysis from incentive analysis, which requires game theory, which is taught
Yeah.
to us only at the end of the second year.
Yeah.
Some analytical papers will require regression or econometrics, which again is taught to us only at the end of the second year. So I started with books like Poor Economics, Good Economics, which are written in conversational language. And
Yeah.
then I picked up on game theory arguments and learned a bit of data handling with R, and started making my way through that as well. I was also lucky to be selected as a Don Lavoie Fellow at the George Mason University, which
Yeah.
again gave me a bit of insight about political economy. I had never really looked at, although that is the thing that I was doing, I did not know that it came under the subset of political economy, right? So that is what got me started in economics in the first place. That the what constitutes a good life and how do we get there? But the concept of state power and how that can distort incentives for actors there was something that I had not yet considered. So
Okay.
that gave me a good thing. And at this point, again, I am about my second year. I'm writing my final exams there. I'm a bit confused because from childhood I wanted to become a civil servant. I
Become
wanted to
a.
become a civil servant.
Okay.
My parents were in the
Yeah, I
government
know.
service,
You told us.
and
Yes.
yes, so I thought the next logical step for me to is serve the country in that capacity. So I should really try my hand at the civil services. But at the same time, I was reading all of these theories about how government power tends to corrupt and distort incentives, and how government aren't really as efficient, and there is very limited role for the government. So I was kind of at odds with the libertarian philosophy there. And at that time, I also realized that I don't know enough about the corporate sector to rule that out right now. And I also don't know enough about economics to really to really take the call that I have learned enough economics that I have to study, right? So now it's just going on to a job at that point. So I was really confused about what to do. And I think my parents rightly so told me, when you are in doubt and you have the time, do everything. So I gave my GRE. I applied to a lot of ton of corporate positions as well. I sat for my placements as well. And but fortunately or unfortunately, the civil services angle I have kind of foreclosed, because I think in the end, the idea that I'm uncomfortable with yielding that part of the state to control or to make those policy decisions for me. Whether those are right or wrong, there's a quest that I'm on. But for the time being, that too seems to be close for me.
Okay.
Uh,
Fine.
at this As I entered into my third year, I also discovered this podcast by a University of Chicago alum, uh, Econ Talk, that is hosted by Russell Roberts, and that was intriguing to me because they talked about economics in a ton of different ways in which I had not yet considered. For example, they talk about economics of parenting and economics of the FDA, economics of regulation,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
Yeah.
So again, looking at it from an economic lens, but it's the same framework but applied to different positions. So that was interesting, and that's when I decided that perhaps graduate studies is a good option for me because I really like the subject. I can listen to people talk about it and all day long. Like reading the subject, and I'm fairly decent at it as well. So why not apply to graduate courses? But I wanted to get an idea of the global education
Yeah.
or foreign education. I had spent all my time in India, even at the undergraduate level and at the school level before that. So I thought it might be prudent for me to again see what people across the pond have to offer. But so I've applied to the LSE, and thankfully I've got in. and I intend to do that right now. But I had also thought that I'll discuss a bit of what my fears are. So
Hang
if
on.
that is
When will you go to LSE?
next month, sir.
Next
In fact,
month.
this month. This
But
month only.
you have graduated from Ashoka?
No, sir. I have graduated from the Hindu college.
You have
I
graduated.
was I was at Ashoka for just a brief period of 3 or 4 months when the results were not yet out.
Yeah. And then you went to Hindu.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have got your BA honors from Delhi University,
Yes, sir.
right? And
Yes, sir.
then what will you do at LSE?
It's a 2 year course. I hope to try and get into development. Again, development is a broad field, but I really want to see what growth stories are and if there are certain policy mixes that we can implement in India. Of course,
Yeah.
it's very will easterly, and people have been doing that for many years. But like a one size fit all solution has not yet worked. But I am really interested to see if we can't really because I think that growth is important for India. We have a
Yeah.
lot of poor people, and it's the kind of redistributionary and populism wave that we seem to be going towards uh, cannot be sustained unless you have a wealth generating aspect to it as well.
Okay.
So
Wonderful. I'm so glad you are going. You made a decision and you have acted on it. And it doesn't matter which place you're going to, but you're going to a place where you want to go. Okay. So let's continue.
yes, sir. So I thought I'd also briefly touch on my fears and what my anxieties are.
Yeah.
So as far as economics is concerned, in my second year, I had the paper on econometrics,
Yeah.
and that paper really went over my head. So the kind of studying that I thought was required for it was not really what was asked in the exam. So whether it's that I didn't prepare according to the exam or whether I didn't prepare the subject is a open-ended question yet. But the bottom line was I didn't score very well on that subject at all. Uh, so that has been a kind of a thing that gives me that whenever I see a complex econometrics or a regression based study, I kind of get back in my shell and say that, okay, wait a minute, I'm not that comfortable discussing this.
Okay.
So I also tried and overcome that. So the Delhi University also gives you the privilege of retaking exams that you want to take 1 year
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
So this time I did take that in my sixth semester as well, and whether that is an indication of I prepared for the test or whether I understood the subject, I ended up getting a decent, perfect score on that. So,
What's a
but
perfect score or decent score?
it's a perfect score, and it's a 10 on 10, sir. So,
Wow. That,
but
I just wanted to make sure that I heard it
yes,
correctly. Getting a 10 on 10
yes,
on econometrics is whatever is the cause is not a joke. It's really
but but,
tough.
but the thank you, sir. But the issue is, and this is something that has been plaguing me, is I'm no more confident of my ability as an econometrician than I was before I wrote my exam.
Yeah, but look,
So,
learn to celebrate a few things.
yes, sir.
Whatever be the cause, you should celebrate a little bit. Okay. All right, let's
Yes.
continue.
Uh, and because I don't have that strong a background in econometrics, or at least I think I don't, I'm also sometimes, self-critical about that, whether I'm really on the path to becoming a serious, within quotes, economist. Because a lot of the economists that I see and the people who respect the field are generally people who do complex mathematics and data crunching and these kind of advanced studies, which I can't even read right now, much less replicate. So that is this thing, because my calling to economics has largely been again about what motivates people in power. How can we incentivize them to act for what is in the larger good than in what is in the narrow good? How do we align incentives that way? What kind of policies end up generating growth rather than just looking at the pie as a zero sum and then trying and then competition between groups to try and reallocate that. So these are things which interest me in economics, but unfortunately or fortunately, these don't seem to be the main thrust of the subject as far as as right now is concerned. So I tried doing some studies in the sector of manufacturing and international trade and financial flows, but uh, even though I may be able to do a good job of that, that's not really what drives me. That's not what really has attracted me towards economics. So that is one fear that I have. And again, I think the last fear that I have is, and this seems to be recurring in my life, is that because I have identified with the libertarian tag, I am always fearful that I may end up doing things which are not based in reason, but reconfirm my prior beliefs. So I don't want to really play to my biases, and economics, as much as we'd like, is not exactly a hard science. There is a lot of room for personal biases to come in. In fact,
Yeah.
one of the observations that I've had, and this is a second-hand observation, is that on any contentious issue, which is, for example, let's say the stimulus spending in the US, right, in the 08, 07, 08 crisis, the people who had the prior belief that the stimulus is not going to lead to recovery did papers and indeed find that the stimulus did not lead to recovery. The people who thought that the stimulus is essential to lessening the recovery period, indeed did find, publish those papers confirming the same bias. So it might just be coincidence, but from my reading, it seems to be true of most contentious issues. So I'm also fearful of that. Is that in my quest to becoming a good economist, I should try and minimize the effect that my biases have, or at least be as transparent about them as I can be.
Okay. That's wonderful thinking. It's really impressive that you have thought of so many things and have come to so many conclusions. And what can I say? It's impressive. Okay. Let's continue if you want to add more.
Uh, so I think I have already gone off script, but again, just two things that drive me continuously is that I think you touched on that a bit. Is that learn to celebrate the little things. So I think I have trouble doing that, and I'm always looking out for the next thing. So that in fact, something that may be symptomatic here is that after getting my admission to the LSE, one of the first emails that I had sent to the department was, "What are the PhD placements like after I complete your course?" So, yeah, so that is something that I is an
Okay.
ongoing
All
process.
right. It's a fascinating journey that you've had, and certainly you have formed some opinions and you have learned to be clear in your own mind what your priorities are. All I can say that, I don't know in details the graduate program at LSE, but certainly the field of economics is big enough and wide enough to have your interests included. Okay. It may not be what most people like to do, may not be what most people will do, but certainly you are not a freak in that. You are very much in the mainstream, though in a niche part, but certainly it's very much there, and it's not something to have a fear about that. Look, am I outsider? No, you're not. You're inside the tent. The tent is big. Okay, economics is a very big tent these days, especially it's ever expanding. People think it's a expansionist discipline. It likes to have economics of war, economics of peace, economics of family, everything they want to get into. So, but yeah, so I think we will be quite happy with what you do and what you learn. And later on, of course, things can change your mind and you can decide. But I don't want to say more than this. I mean, it's a good choice that you're making. And what can I say? It's a good thinking, good analysis, and good learning. If you have nothing more to add, we can say goodbye to the viewers, and hopefully we see you in a year and see what you want to say at the end of the first year outside the country, and hear from you, maybe in a little shorter discussion, what you've learned, what you've changed, how you are. Okay, are we ready to say goodbye?
Definitely, sir. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity. It was
Okay,
wonderful
fine.
speaking with you.
Okay, thank you, Shaurya. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.